The space between the space. Have you ever seen it? Are you ready to view it? Is all of humanity ready to look inside?
First time I was experienced any type of phenomenon was probably when I was 5 years old. I used to refer to the item that I would see as the tall, skinny lady with the lights in her eyes, with big black eyes. And I didn't know what it was, and I would tell my parents, I would tell my brother, my grandmother, and they dismissed it. They didn't really believe me. But I knew I saw it. And the fact that, here I am, 45 years, 46 years later, and I could still remember it and picture it in my head, that means it's definitely not a dream. It's a memory. Why is this stuff happening? I have to have the data. I have to have the information. If you see these photos, you can't unsee them. To say why something's true, otherwise I can't say it. Those humans who vibrate with higher consciousness often stand out like a light in the darkness and can be seen by all. What I understand now, it is probably most likely a tall gray.
In the vast silence of the universe, whispers of their presence has traveled through the cosmos. Known as the gray aliens, these mysterious figures are central to extraterrestrial mythology. Their skin is pale as moonlight, their eyes vast and revealing. These beings are most often associated with UFO sightings and abduction claims. Their slender bodies and large heads give them a silhouette that is instantly recognizable and universally associated with extraterrestrial contact.
What I have learned is that I was most likely taken at a certain time, and those are the times when I would see that type of tall gray, is when the times either I was returning or I was being taken.
The alien abduction phenomenon is often closely linked with the Greys, whose mysterious encounters with humans are both intriguing and terrifying. Those who report these abductions describe waking up paralyzed under the intense gaze of these silent, otherworldly visitors. According to these accounts, abductees are often taken from their beds and transported aboard spacecraft, where they are subjected to mysterious procedures and examinations. These chilling narratives frequently include detailed descriptions of strange instruments and telepathic communication, leaving abductees with lingering emotional and psychological scars. What purposes these abductions serve remain unclear, fueling ongoing debate and fear about the motives of the Greys and their interactions with humanity.
16 days after my awakening, on April 26, 2014, the first gray appeared in a digital photo. The photo was taken while standing on a party bus in Highland, California. This gray alien is visible in the party bus back mirror. Typically, a gray alien appearance is not obvious in the photo, and at times they attempt to camouflage or mesh on top or within other frequencies in the photo. I initially thought this was ridiculously clear, it could not be real. Upon further review, we confirmed it is not a reflection, it is present in the mirror. We also confirmed no one on the party bus would see the gray alien with their naked eye. It validated that I knew what I was seeing. I saw it. I would experience it. As I continued with my awakening journey, I began to read many New Age books. One book I was drawn to was named The Palladian Agenda. The Palladian Agenda book increased my frequency and awareness of thought and universal possibilities. Around this time, I captured my first extraterrestrial Palladian digital photo. A Palladian appeared on the media screen of my cell phone. I learned some beings operate by devices and machines. 1 week later, on July 17, 2014, I captured 3 additional Palladians within my digital photos. These selfie photos were taken within minutes of each other during another workday commute. The first and the third photos appear to be the same Palladian female from July 10th. After viewing the previous photo from July 10th, I was not surprised to see the other visitors. I am sure many think I spend all my time standing around taking pictures and selfies, and this could not be farther from the truth. Many of these photos were triggered by my intuition telling me to take the picture at a unique place and time. The voice of my intuition pops into my head somehow, some way. There's a certain way, and there's that they only appear. The extraterrestrials, especially, and the supernatural, especially, exist in a certain frequency. these entities recognize that you could see them, and so they want to be seen, and so they're kind of photobombing your images. Within the same selfie digital photo is a small energy portal, disk, or stargate. I'm unsure if this disk is how the Pleiadian manifested within the media screen. This energy portal, or mini stargate, is in circular shape, like a disk, and glowing with bright white and grayish color. Lastly, it appears there is motion of plasma projecting out of the disk. Upon conducting online research, the appearance resembles an accretion disk. So throughout my life, there has always been an exposure or experience to be able to sense different things. For instance, back in the day when we had cathode ray tubes, you have that television set that has a constant vibration because there is inside the television a tube that is electrified with a little bit of a spring or a coil. It's a vacuum inside of it and it hums. Well, I could hear that all the time. I never knew why. And then I could hear other things other people couldn't hear. When other humans don't acknowledge certain things, you get to, at least from my experience, you just stop talking about it because they can't hear it or they can't deal with it. They don't understand, so why waste your time? So I kept a lot of stuff to myself. To wake up humans, to wake humanity up, to share with them that humans have the ability and to see what I see, also that everything exists like that, that it's all there. You just have to pay attention. I was taking a contract at Chevron. The person who was my manager who hired me, I call him the awakener. His purpose was to awaken humans, was to wake them up in their consciousness, to intentionally open them up for their purpose. One day in the morning we were having coffee, told him I had trouble sleeping, and he asked, why do you think that was? Why are you having trouble sleeping? He goes, maybe you have something that's disrupting your mind when you're sleeping. Do you sleep with your cell phone next to your head? Do you have your router in your same room? You know, do you have something that just has a lot of electrical static or something in the room? I'm like, no, not really. I said, but I could always hear things humming, you know, and I told him the story about the TVs. And he says that he was a Polish gentleman in his accent. He said, Anthony, you must have extra senses. And we started talking about various different things, and he explained some things to me about the phenomenon and how that would work. And I thought about it, and then, so I'm getting the chills right now. It just seemed like everything all came together, like the time going back to when I was 5, what I saw. It just seemed like it came together so much on that day. And then from that point on, he turned into a mentoring coach. Every single day, even though that was work, we had a time where we set aside where he was teaching me and explaining to me about extraterrestrials and explaining to me about energy and explaining to me about why certain things exist. So we talked about government, we talked about control, telepathy, psychic dreams, astral projection, remote viewing. So that introduced me into meditation. So I changed my eating habits. I started eating organic. I started being more grounded. I started having different energy stones. I started meditation. And that allowed me to grow more, to vibrate even at a different level that I was even at before. And that changed my critical thinking, and that changed my opportunity to get exposure. So that kicked off a lot of instruction, and I feel like my brain just expanded, because my background is computer science, and in computer science there's something called a linked list in programming. And a linked list is basically memory that is linked together in a linear fashion, but there's no physical placement in the memory. So that means they're all connected, and they can move around, and they're linked together, but at one time they could be synced. They could just be synced together. So for me, going all the way back to when I was 5 years old to when at the time, this was like 11 years ago, so this would have been when I was 41 or so, that all those different things that were moving around just synced together. And so then I started using that to do research. I started looking up, well, if I say I saw a gray, what would it look like? And then I compared the images that I had in my phones at the time, those images, and I found replica images of descriptions of what they were, and I did further research. And then I started to understand, well, why is this happening to me, and what can I do with that? And that was the beginning of, I should start documenting my experience.
The supernatural is commonly commercialized as ghouls or scary creatures portrayed in so many movies, but many experience the supernatural as disembodied energy seeking human attention.
One definition of an apparition is a supernatural appearance of a person or thing, especially a ghost. The apparition of a ghost was my first known photo taken containing such unexpected or anomalous content type. was one of the most profound pictures in my book, related to Maria, who at the time I wasn't engaged with, eventually got engaged with, and then it didn't work out. A fire happened at her mother's house in Ensenada, which is Baja California. We go down to take pictures for the insurance claim. So it's myself, her, and her sister. I'm just taking pictures with the cell, taking pictures. Didn't look at any of them until afterwards went to go eat, and we were at dinner, and I'm looking through them, and I'm like, what is this? I'm like, what, you see this? Like, where's that? I'm like, that's your mom's house. And so what happened was that we had captured a photo, and the photo was of a man kneeling down with long red hair, wearing a denim shirt and jeans, kneeling down in the kitchen. This was a fire-damaged location, so the kitchen was destroyed. It was fire, burned up walls, burned wood. The ceiling was almost collapsing. So there was nothing in the kitchen except for like a chair that was burnt. When I took the photo, the image that showed up was, okay, a chair and burned kitchen. Then the very next photo that I took a few seconds later was this apparition. What it turned out to be Maria's father, who had passed away almost 30 years ago. In photo 1, you could see a man kneeling in the middle of the dining room. This man is wearing a long blue sleeve shirt and has long red hair. In photo 2, you see a chair where the man is kneeling. This chair physically existed and resided in the dining room. The man in photo 1 was not physically present with us, yet he managed to manifest himself with enough energy to appear in photo 1, fully blocking the chair from the camera's view. And so what happens is when something happens, just like you have passed and you go to a funeral, they call it a celebration of life. But that funeral brings people together, right? It brings all the people that loved, and they have a lot of emotion. It's the same thing that happens when you pass. Your energy, just because your consciousness and your soul is no longer in your body, when you think about it, that goes out into the universe, and other people, other beings are going to hear it. And so it's a calling. So just like we drove from California to Baja California to get to that place, energy is going to come and is also going to go to that place, because it's like a beacon. It's like being called. And if you're at that vibration at the time, then you'll capture that. And if they see you, they're going to intentionally do their best to show up so they can be seen. And that's one of the main photos I have, like the most clearest photo that I have. And really interesting. I've done that many times with the extraterrestrials, with the apparitions, with energy balls that are flying around that you can't see with a visual eye, a naked eye, but that are there and detectable. And so you could use like a heat map function from the software that allows you to enhance the image or bring out the intensity of whatever's in that image. One late evening after dinner in October 2019, my daughter and I were walking back to our vehicle. My intuition prompted me to take photos of the two-story building on my right side. The building seemed to have a unique energy, as I felt as if I was being watched. Upon capturing the image were three distinct supernatural energies. 1, mist flowing from the window to the other. 2, two white balls that appear to be disembodied eyes. And 3, the face of a demon with a long head and nose. These photos are zoomed in and rotated for better viewing. Focus on the middle and lower right photos. The frequency of the demon was analyzed using Cognitech FI64 forensic software. It produced 3 images: a histogram type, a zero elevation plot image, and haze removal. Dark Entity Apparition, popular restaurant, Newport Beach, California. The frequency of this dark entity was analyzed using the cognitive FI64 forensic software, and I produced a temperature image and 2 zero elevation plot images. Note the extracted eye shapes and intensity, illuminated as light blue, almost turquoise. All that for me is validation. It was all real. What I learned is that every human has the potential to experience what I've experienced. It deals with your consciousness and your vibration. There's an energy field that exists around every human. I believe that there is a purpose for them being in a certain area or wanting to be seen. Some of it is because they do care for humanity, or they care for humans. They don't want to see them destroy themselves. And then I believe that there's others that are not so like that. And the reason I say that is that, so extraterrestrials, I feel the definition may cross between that and entities. So let's say entities being demonic. Okay, so what's a demon? What's a demon? A demon is an entity, which means it's energy, but it's not human, and it's not extraterrestrial. It's energy that exists that is somewhere in the plane, but not in this three-dimensional plane, but sometimes could cross into this third-dimensional plane and still be disembodied, meaning that it doesn't have any physical piece to it. It doesn't have a good intent, and it feeds off of fear. The ones that I've had exposure to have been entities that would be demonic, that I have a few photos of, that I feel their intention. Their intention is to cause you havoc. Their intention is to see your demise, because then you no longer have to be on this earth, and then you could be with them. And then they will, what I understand, I believe this is true, is that these entities control other souls. They keep you trapped as well. And I've seen that. I've seen multiple pictures where that is the case, where you have some demons that exist amongst apparitions or ghosts, or, benevolent beings that are there and they're trapped. Energy is all around us in the 3D world and exists in many forms, such as sound, chemical, radiant, electric, atomic, mechanical, spiritual, and universal. I truly never understood the last two types for much of my life, as I was ungrounded, busy being too emotional and distracted with life's whirlwind of things. In recent years, I learned to ground myself using energy stones and eating organic food as much as possible. The energy stones assist me with emotional intelligence, protection, and intuitive abilities, and enable me to remain open and aware of energy in my surroundings. The acquisition of these energy stones comes to me in two ways. The first is being at the right place and time when I'm drawn to a particular stone. The vibrational frequency of these energy stones may temporarily impact my mental state. However, they eventually go away. If the impact is more than 24 hours, I know the energy stone does not have the correct frequency for me. If you understand humans have energy and vibrate at a certain frequency, you will understand you can vibrate to a higher frequency, thus projecting a higher vibrational space. Humans with extrasensory perceptions, babies, young children, and even animals. During my daily work commute in Los Angeles County, California, I spent a lot of time driving in traffic on local freeways and streets. As I further tuned into the universe, I would feel and capture energy within my photos. I often dismissed the energy as the camera flash, only to recall I didn't use it. Even with the digital camera, I would need to train my eyes as much as possible and remain open. Eventually, I will no longer require a tool such as a digital camera or cell phone to view the space between the space. A few months later, I captured additional floating energy. Energy photo number 2 was taken on October 22nd, 2014 at 2:45 p.m. at a stoplight on Sepulveda Boulevard in El Segundo, California. Within energy photo number 2 in the left, you literally view two energy spheres manifest in midair. Their location and distance are difficult to determine. Also provided are two zoomed in versions of energy photo number 2, allowing for a clearer view of these two energy spheres. Energy photo number 3 was taken 1 second later at 2:45 p.m. This was my attempt to remove or debunk the energy spheres with simple photo adjustments. Included are 3 zoomed in versions and 1 version adjusted for color and temperature. I determined that the energy appeared and was of high frequency. No matter what adjustment I performed in the photos, the energy would not disappear or get absorbed. Lastly, the energy spheres appear to be in motion. For instance, if you observe and allow the 2 adjacent vehicles in the photos to serve as static markers and visually compare photos number 2 and number 3, you will see that energy spheres have moved and are not in their same locations. It's detectable. You could actually measure it. And so you can measure that as a form of frequency. So what is frequency? Well, frequency is a number, it's a vibration. How do you get to a higher vibration? You do that by changing to being more connected to the universe, is what I understood and what I took away from the Awakener. So how do you become more grounded to that? If you're grounded to the earth and the earth is part of the universe, then your vibration will increase as a result of that. Meditation is a second thing. Quartz, various different energy stones have a frequency. Many times that frequency could enhance either the person who has the stones on them or could enhance the environment. So if I walk into a room and I'm carrying this big ball of quartz, it's going to amplify other things, and it may distort some things depending on how strong it is. Well, that works with humans. So if you have something that's touching you or it's on you, it amplifies you. That means maybe you're brighter, but also could increase your vibration. Think of it as an elevator. You're going to one floor and you see you're on floor 2, and I get to see everything on floor 2. Well, I'm going to go to floor 3. Well, all right, well, the person on floor 2 is not going to be able to see what's on floor 3. So it's your higher vibration, and so these beings then are these entities, the supernatural, are at that higher frequency. So when I talk about apparitions or ghosts or supernatural or extraterrestrials, they don't exist in the same frequency as what I've learned. Any being that is human, so that existed on the plane, leaves energy that is around, and you could see it with your naked eye. In the visual spectrum, you could see it. I found a location in Los Angeles that took pictures of your aura, and I took a picture of my aura, and the vibration matched what was in the ultraviolet A, which is the spectrum that is beyond the visual light, which is into the ultraviolet A band or wavelength. If you're at that vibration, then you could see different things. So I have a photo that proves that, okay, Anthony's at this vibration. You look in the electromagnetic spectrum and you measure and you look at the wavelength, bandwidth, and where that's at. It's almost like your radio. Turn the station on your radio. If you get to 69.9, you hear one music or certain music. You turn that dial to 71.1, you're going to hear something different. The same thing with the frequency that you do. It works the same way. The Awakener taught me that if you want to be able to continue this and develop it, you have to be at a higher vibration. How do you get to higher vibration? Eat organic foods, become more grounded, do meditation, so that you could constantly be at a vibration that allows you to do that. As I got older, and others got older, my friends got older, my family got older, you're no longer a kid. You got to grow up, right? So some of them, as you grow up, they don't want to hear about things like that. So it gets back to, I don't only bring it up, I only talk about it if they're open to it. So my background kind of prepped me for a lot of what I'm dealing with now. I was always looking at data. I knew about sensors. I knew about frequencies. I knew how to build it, or I knew how it was built. And I wrote software to be able to process the data. So my background has always been, I didn't realize it has always been in there, combined with classified knowledge, combined with other things and seeing other things that exist, other technologies. Your critical and your mental state then molds you to think about things in a certain way. You can't talk about it. If you're working for a company and they're tied to the government, you can't go and talk to them about, hey, this is extraterrestrial that I think you could do. Can I see it? No, you can't do that. And in a way, what I've learned going back to the Awakener is because when I left Northrop Grumman, eventually my security clearance expired. He goes, that's why you left, because you were meant to do something else. If you see these photos, you can't unsee them. Well, this energy and the frequency, I explained to a lot of people during that time that the energy's all around. They're always there. Everything's there, but you're not paying attention because you're not at the right vibration, or you're not open to it, or whatever it may be. I continue to capture things, but because it happens so often, I'm like, well, look, I see this. And then I'll ask somebody else, maybe my significant other, whoever at the time, and they're like, no, I don't see it. And depending on their reaction, I'll either continue to talk about it more or I won't. When I had that awakening, I didn't care anymore. I don't care what people think. I don't care if somebody's going to try to control me. So that freed me up to a point where I don't want to go back to having a clearance. I don't want to go back to anything. That's why I'm doing independent contracting right now, because I like to work for myself. I don't like to work for all this control. And that's part of it. And so if you're less controlled and you're more free, then you're more open. You're more open, then you're more exposed to things. And then that's what happens. It's all connected like that. One of the items I also do is I do dream interpretation. Dream interpretation, what I do there is I have strong intuition. If you were to come to me and give me a dream and you describe the dream, you're flying and you were in some blah, 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 and then all of a sudden you were in a train and you're in another part of the world that you never have been to before, and then you see a red car and then a girl came and kissed you. All these are symbols. Others have lucid dreams, which means they could really they're in there and they could control their dreams. So that's an ability that they have. Not everybody could do that. They could control their dreams and interact in their dreams, and they could produce anything they want in their dreams. That's interesting. I can't do that either. What I can do is that I have dreams that represent symbols, and those symbols in the dreams, once I interpret them using my intuition and a secondary piece of astrology, a book that's based on astrology, I use that and my intuition guides me to the interpretation, and those end up being almost like predictions or premonitions of things that happen in your life or in the people that are close to you. And so I call those psychic dreams. And so those psychic dreams happen when you're in your state. You're in a kind of a daze. You're just getting into that relaxed state. So that's where meditation comes in. Then your consciousness and your ability is you're in a different realm. Sometimes they call that the fourth dimension. That then gets you into remote viewing, or gets you into an area where your consciousness is traveling and going to somewhere else. Psychedelic drugs, I believe that also can trigger that type of experience. And the reason why I say that, so I do drink beer, I've never taken any drugs. There's a certain microbrewery that it is made with certain herbs or is made with certain hops. It has like a psychedelic effect. For me, I am so sensitive. I can't take NyQuil without it affecting me too much. I can't drink hard liquor. That's why I just drink beer. There was one occasion that really stuck out to me where I drank some beer, didn't have too much, but it had a psychedelic effect where I was awake, but I was somewhere else. I all of a sudden felt that somebody was trying to come after me, felt that somebody was trying to kill me. My background, I've always, for most of my career, I had a high security clearance, a top secret SCI clearance. And so about certain programs, about certain things that are going on. I won't say the agencies that were going on there, but there's things that the government does. When I had this effect, what I was experiencing at the time, I had traveled. My consciousness traveled, and similar to remote viewing, I went to a location, a secure location. I was in a lab, and I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. And what I saw was my manipulation through cell phone towers, and the ability for cell phone towers not just to transmit, but to receive and program and to transmit, and to be able to then affect humans who were at a time being prepped to receive a signal. And I was in this lab, and I wasn't supposed to be there, and I got stuck, and I was there in this state for 8 hours, for almost 8 or 9 hours. And when I woke up, like at 7 o'clock in the morning, when I woke up, I remember a foot, as if somebody was like putting their foot down on my face. And they said, "Remember what I told you." And I got up, and I had pain on my face, and I woke up, and I didn't have a hangover. And I was like, what happened? I believe that I did come across a program, and that I came across this program that is related to mass shootings, and is related to humans that for some reason they decided to go on a rampage. And what this program tied to was that they have certain people that at a certain time they could just press a button, and the signals are sent through the cell phone towers, and the cell phone towers then go to and can trigger somebody who's already been pre-programmed through a certain way. And that is how it does it. And it was related to the government. I believe it's a result of the book. Also because there is entities, and when I produced this book, there was a lot of things, weird, odd things that were happening. There's a government agency, there is a government that has a program, and they are utilizing different people that have extra senses, that have the ability to remote view whenever they want, to either look at things, secrets, whatever it may be, and they also have mind control and the ability to manipulate through mind control. And so they have technology that can do this whenever they want. There's like some remote viewing police force where your consciousness travels to a different place, and then there's another consciousness that is there, and they can keep you. They can trap your energy somehow. You can never go back if that's the case. And that explains how some people go into a coma where their body's there, but sometimes they're not. Their consciousness has gone somewhere else. So remote viewing is the ability to take your consciousness, and you're able to view, like you're looking at me right now. Imagine you could do this around the world at some geographical location. If I give you the coordinates of some place, then you're able to go to that place and you could see what's there. And it's not just on the Earth. You could do it in the universe. You could go to the moon. You could go to Mars. And that's why there's some stories about, I don't know if you've heard, where there's a full civilization on Mars, but they exist on a different dimension. They're in a different vibration, not in the physical plane. The way the process works for me, I could see my aura when I close my eyes. I could see dots that are flickering in the darkness. So if you close your eyes and you see dark in front of you, but there's still different shades of color. For me, In the middle are a bunch of dots that are just floating around, and they're constantly floating around. And the color of those dots represent my aura. And I focus on those dots. So when I meditate, I take my deep breaths, I bring my air and my breathing, I breathe it all the way up, and I try to bring pressure up to my brain with oxygen, bringing that air up in my breathing. And I only need probably about 7 or 8 of those, and then I get into that state. And at that time, I'm constantly staring at those dots. Eventually, those dots and everything disappear, and I start to then see energy, various balls of, usually they're purplish blue, that are now constantly coming in. They're like you're in a tunnel, like you're going to the point where eventually they then like normalize or harmonize. And I am, let's say I'm in a field and there's grass, there's a rail, there's a barn, and there's people there. Sometimes they see you. And I've asked this question to different mediums. How do they see me? And what was described to me is, well, they're, Anthony, look, when you do remote viewing or you do astral projection, you're traveling, your conscious is there. It's as if they're seeing an apparition of you. Am I a ghost? Like, yeah, they're seeing you manifest wherever you're at. So yeah, they could see you. Now I do it like almost every day. I have not been able to control it to where I could go where I want to go. So it's kind of randomized, right? And so I don't know where it's gonna take me. Those that are in control and they could do it, you have to be careful because they could cause you harm if they have that intention. So there was a person that I was very close to, was having this recurring dream. A lot of times when you have a recurring dream, I believe it's your soul communicating to you because you're not dealing with something in your life. There's something going on, whatever it is, and you have to address it. Until you address it, that dream is going to continue. So there was a person that was having a recurring dream, and they gave me the symbols, and I gave them the interpretation back. And I said, you're going to have to make a decision about what it is. I don't know. I said, these are your dreams. I'm just like the messenger. I don't have any say in it. This is just what my intuition and what is telling me. And what it turned out was that this person they were married, and the husband had a secret that for the prior month, 30 days before, found out about something and wasn't telling his wife. So the wife was having these dreams. So the wife then, I gave the interpretation to the wife, and it turned out to be that the husband had a offspring, child from somebody else from 10, 15 years ago, and he just found out about it. He didn't know, and he wasn't telling his wife. But she felt it. She felt it, and what I believe is that his strong thoughts was influencing, and when it was bugging him. So she was picking up on that when she was sleeping, and it was coming into her dreams. I didn't know that part about not having a child, or having the child. I only knew that I said there's something what I told her was there's something that he's going to tell you. And he's going to tell you within the next 2 weeks. And that, whatever he's going to tell you is going to, basically, you're going to have to decide whether you're going to stay married or not, whether you're going to get a divorce. That's what I interpret. And then, so sure enough, within a week later, he told her that he had another kid. And she stayed with him. It worked out, totally worked out and things. But there wasn't messaging directly given to me, but I interpreted the message that was being given to another person, which gets back to the thoughts in the fourth dimension in your consciousness. Like, if you think about something right now, if you put your thoughts out there into the universe, it's going to be heard. Others are going to hear it. And so it works that same way when you travel in remote viewing. You could travel, it's about energy. So that explains why, and I believe this is true, that you have something called residual hauntings in dwellings, in locations. The energy that if somebody, let's say somebody was murdered in a house, in a room, they're most likely going to be energy there, residual energy that is going to exist for years, forever, because they're stuck. Their energy was so strong at the time, it was so at a heightened that it kind of got imprinted on the item. And so you could actually buy furniture that has energy with it from a yard sale that has bad energy. You could, whatever it is, and then you get into more of like cleansing and things. But that's how energy works. Energy is very strong. It deals with the consciousness. Everybody has this consciousness and ability. And then when you do the meditation, you open yourself up, and you could then tap into various different consciousness. it was happening during the 2014. It was happening so frequently that it became clear I needed to, document this. And so the awakener was like, well, you should write a book then. I'm like, oh, a book. However, also later on, he also recommended that I see my first medium. I've never really paid for anything to see a medium. And there was a medium, Monica Sepulveda, like the top of 100 in the world. And so I did a reading with her. She explained to me that later on I was going to be writing books. As I get into my 50s, I would be writing books, and I would be very, very successful writing books. And I'm like, oh, that's okay. How do you really, measure that and see if it makes sense? And she explained to me that I would do a lot of research utilizing my background, and I would find a lot of information on the internet. She's like, you're going to do a lot of research, and you're going to find a lot of information. So then getting to writing my book, my daughter at the time I would have to take her in the morning to school. So she lived in Glendale and I lived in Covina. So I was traveling in the morning to Glendale, and then at the time going from Glendale to El Segundo. So I would go from 210 to the 134, the 134 to the 2 to the 5 to the 110 out to El Segundo. Along that path of getting into the 5, from the 2 to the 5, the sun would be very at your front because it was rising. This is probably about 7:15 in the morning. The sun just glares at you. But my intuition would at the times was like, just take a selfie. And so I took a lot of selfies at that time. For some reason, that area around, which would be Elysian Park, has some certain energy that's around that area. So I would take selfies. And at that time, there was various phenomenon that would come out consistently, week by week. When I would get back to work, on my way to work, then the awakener was there, and he's like, hey, so did you capture any interesting things? I'm like, yeah, check this out. He goes, wow. So then he would do research on what my images, what he would think they are. And he was concerned that it was happening too much. He was concerned that I was seeing too many extraterrestrials, and they were going to do something to me because I was exposing them. Because one, I'm able to capture them, and two, what they look like. And I have some hard evidence in the images to show it. But then I also became to a point where I was like, I wonder what I'm going to capture today. Let me see what I'm going to do. Let me see this here. Well, there was one, I didn't intentionally do it before my awakening. Okay, so water memory. So water has ability to retain energy. And in this case, we're talking about any type of energy. So let's say that you're in a pool and there's an electrical wire, a cable came loose, and it fell into the water. Well, if you're standing in that water, you're going to get electrocuted because water conducts current, right? So you're able, the electricity will travel. So that concept is the same for energy that exists in humans. When we talked about auras, and you talk about being able to see an aura, but there's an electromagnetic field that exists in all of us. That energy then can go into water. If you take a shower and the water that you used, it goes into the drain, your energy is going into that water, it goes out to the drain. There's something called the collective consciousness. Okay, so consciousness, higher vibration. If you have a lot of people thinking about the same thing, that's powerful. So there's a power of thought, a power of collective of consciousness, and that's when you get into like holy water and prayer. If somebody is at a higher vibration, their energy can be put into something else. If it can be measured, great. There is now proof of this thing called water memory. So water memory, getting back to that, is water that retains memory and has the ability then to retain it for a very long time. So the chapter in the book talks about water memory, gives a little bit of a context and background, but I have a photo in the book where my daughter were at USC when she was 14 years old, so this is probably, about 10 or 11 years ago. She's standing in front of a fountain, and in the water is of a face. There's an image of a face, or what looks like just a head of a Spartan. So a Spartan mask, and then the bottom part of a human chin that's in the water. When I showed this photo to the awakener, and the awakener's like, well, that's water memory. Water memory. So I looked it up, and there's scientific research out there and proof that water has the ability to retain memory. And so I have a photo exhibits that, it proves that, and I processed that through the Cognitech software, the authentication software, and is able to enhance it and bring it out. And so that's water memory. Yeah, so water memory exists. And to me, then that also explains why potentially holy water would work. The purpose here for this book is for me to share. to awaken. If I go into a place and there's 30 people and one person comes out of that, and it was allowed them to become awaken, or it allows them to become more knowledgeable, then that kind of served what I was trying to do. And I feel the energy from it. It's really interesting to say that the giving and whether it's mentoring, coaching, or changing in a positive way makes me feel good. So I feel that is part of the purpose, is to do that, and it keeps me going. These energies exist. With my security clearance, the difference between when I had it and when I don't now is that you have more freedom to do things, or at least I do. Then you open your eyes to the fact that you can't pay attention to the mainstream media, right, or different things like that. I mean, you have to validate things and understand things for yourself, and you have to make sure that you love yourself and looking out for yourself. The other things you could do with this information is that there are potential patents, or there's things that have come out of this that you could actually create. One of them was cloaking. So if you think about energy, and you could electrify, which means, put electricity to anything. But if you knew the right frequency, if I had a device then that would allow me and what I'm wearing to be energized to the point where it hit the frequency where you could no longer see in that band, right? So now, since we know that microwave exists, you can't see it. We know there's radiation that comes from the sun. If you're out in the sun, you go to the beach, and you don't wear any sunblock, you're going to get sunburned. Well, you didn't see the rays coming down, but you know they exist because you'll get sunburned. So the technology coming out of this would help you realize that it exists. If you create a device that allows me to prevent you from seeing it, and I could press a button and I could disappear, what would you do with it? I don't know what I would do with it, but there's good and bad. That technology, I'm pretty sure, exists already. The remote viewing portion is interesting because I believe it does exist. I did some research, and you talk about some of the past programs that the government had for mind control and dealing with psychedelic drugs, so they gave them drugs to allow them to do that, and how frequencies can manipulate, various different things. So what you get out of this is a realization that there is you talk about spirituality, and you talk about, okay, whether it's extraterrestrials or demons or apparitions or ghosts, whatever you want to call them, that it all still deals with vibration and frequency. And you change that frequency and you'll get something different. That's what you'll get taken away out of this. And you'll get a visual from the book. You'll get a visual for it. You'll get more of an understanding of how, in my case, how it was able to be done, where a simple cell phone is able to capture this. One of the things I didn't talk about is that a lot of times they're going to show up on reflective surfaces. Because, so let's say extraterrestrials, okay? Most of the extraterrestrials that I have in my images show up as a result of the reflective surface that is in the photo. So for instance, if my direct line of sight, and if it's here, I won't be able to see it. But when I'm vibrating, I take that photo, it'll show up on the backdrop of where it is in front of, or somehow, I don't know exactly how that works, but that's been consistent throughout. So you'll take away that, it is related in that spectrum. So they're consistently reside in that ultraviolet A spectrum. Like, let's say as an example, you have a family, and the family, isn't well off. Maybe they're low income, but they don't need any of it. And why don't they need it? Because they have love. That's all they need. And so going through life like that makes a big difference. For me, doing that in my life is what it's going to be, and that's going to then steer me in the right direction. So a lot of that, things happen for a reason. It's going to take me to where it's supposed to be. They always say that everything's already happened. I don't know if you understand that part or not. Like, everything that we're dealing with now has already happened. We're just going through it. And that explains why mediums and they call them maybe psychics are like, I could see this, or I could see into the future. Well, everything's happened already, so they're just tapping into something, like fast forwarding to a different scene, but it's already happened already. So things are meant to be in a certain way. So I think this is my purpose, and things are meant to be in this. But me talking to you, is part of it. And then after, I believe that you're out in the universe. So what I've been told is that I am very interesting. That these few mediums, Carmen Sima, who is the person who wrote the foreword on the book, did a channeling, and she channeled that the reason why that I have seen so many extraterrestrials is because that I am one from, she said, from the ninth dimension. She said, you're an elder. What is apparently, I'm an elder from the ninth dimension. You're here on this plane in this life, and she said, this is the last time you're going to be here, and then you move on. Eventually, too many sightings and events will occur. The world will be forced to disclose extraterrestrials exist and may be seen in the space between the space.